Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to a live Manchester United news, transfer news and update show. And there is a lot of news and information to get through in today's show. We've got some updates on exits: Maguire, Lindelof, McTominay, a double exit plan this week. Sancho Greenwood, Ashworth, ideal signing and first signing he wants to bring to Man United has been revealed, and Man United are very much advancing on that signing because Fabrizio Romano about 30 seconds ago dropped an update on that signing. We'll give you the latest on the Ligt, the other transfer news, Hinkapie, Doué for Fana, my little chat about that, some takeover changes happening right now, some new stuff coming in, and Mason's Mount's role for next season will all be getting discussed in today's live show. But news is just coming from Fabrizio Romano here, which is confirmation again just from Fabrizio Romano that Erik ten Hag has been on the phone in recent weeks with several players who could be opportunities for Manchester United. One of the players ten Hag's been in contact with is Joshua Zirkzee. Now, Fabrizio Romano has confirmed all of a sudden yesterday that Man United were the favourites to land Zirkzee. Romano keeps saying AC Milan, even though Italian sources were saying Man United, Man United. Romano changes of the mind yesterday, says that Man United are the favourites to land Joshua Zirkzee. They've been on the phone with Joshua Zirkzee, and the contact between Joshua Zirkzee and Erik ten Hag in recent weeks has been constant. Erik ten Hag is really pushing. It's believed Zirkzee can be convinced to join Manchester United, said by Fabrizio Romano. Obviously, there was insight coming in on personal terms agreed between Joshua Zirkzee and Manchester United as well. And we know that Dan Ashworth's ideal signing and first signing he wants to bring in is reportedly Joshua Zirkzee. So we're going to get into that story and we're going to talk about that in more detail in just a second. But I do want to get into the outs, then we'll get into the ins as well. But as Alex said, that is a positive update from Fab, finally suggesting genuine momentum with Zirkzee to United. I've been very sceptical with Joshua Zirkzee to Manchester United news. Italian media, I don't believe them. I sometimes think, this is Zirkzee's agent trying to get more commission out of Milan using Man United. I was sceptical. But then when you've got Fabrizio Romano saying, no, you know what, Zirkzee and ten Hag constant contact, Zirkzee looks like he's going to be open to the move. Man United are in pole position. Man United favourites to get Zirkzee. Nothing will happen to after the Euros, but it looks positive. And I got a few people saying, Alice, it's so annoying, like nothing's happening. We keep getting updates, but nothing's happening. I just think it is the Euros and Copa America now. I think that's what's getting in the way. I think United are going to get the Ligt, Zirkzee and Agate, and I think they're going to get all of those players now. I just think that the reason it's not done yet is because of the Euros dragging on. I think just makes the whole situation a little bit, I'd say just a little bit more on the complicated side, if that makes sense. I just think that's probably one of the reasons it is dragging out. But I do want to get into the news. I do want to get into some more updates surrounding Manchester United because there's quite a bit of news coming out, and I didn't do a live show last night. I just thought I'd do a short 10-minute video roundup because I know some of you guys prefer live shows. I know some of you guys prefer short 10-minute video roundup, so I like to do a mix of both when I think is most appropriate. So make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new, and we are going to get right into the main topics of today's show. Okay, so we're going to be talking firstly about the outs, then we'll talk about Ashworth's ideal signing, we'll talk about the Ligt, we'll talk about Zirkzee, we'll talk about Agate, we're going to talk about changes happening right now. Mount's role for next season has been decided, which is an interesting role, and then Hinkapie, Doué, Fofana, a couple other signings on the United card as well. Wan-Bissaka might leave. Who's going to replace him? Honestly, I don't know. Let me just grab a quick drink here. There is rumours and reports of Wan-Bissaka leaving for the right fee. In terms of replacing him, I couldn't tell you. I think the lowest sin is the first choice right back. Maybe we find like a hidden gem on the market. I think left back Man United should look at Loco, or we should be looking at some kind of hybrid player, bring in someone that could be available for a good price. But let's get into the news. Let's get into the stories because there's a lot to talk about, and then we can talk about England later on. So, in regards to outs, this has been said. Manchester United are willing to cash in on Harry Maguire, according to TalkSport. Lindelof or Maguire leave United and will push to... If Lindelof or Maguire leave, United will push to bring in two centre-backs, although the recruitment department are conscious that finances are tight and the squad needs another striker to replace Martial. Fulham are exploring a move for Scott McTominay. Manchester United are willing to sell him for the right price, and Ineos are hoping to offload at least two of Maguire, Lindelof, McTominay, and Casemiro this summer. So I think what could be going on in regards to Man United, in regards to outs, is they want one of Maguire and Lindelof to go. Ideally, they probably would want both to go because they want a second centre-back signing and they still want Branthwaite, and we will talk about that later in the show. I think it's probably more likely that Lindelof leaves than Maguire because of the 1 year left on his contract, the lower wages, probably more likely to be forced out because he's a lesser player. Now, I'm going to say this, I'm going to talk about this at the end of the show, but I think Man United should sign a left-back, left centre-back hybrid. We've got Ligt playing, but we should maybe sign a left-back, left centre-back hybrid. Like a Calafiori type player, a Hincapie, a Pacho, a Hatto, because I think maybe that person can then cover left back and centre back, and that can be one signing doing two positions because we need a left back and we also need a second centre back, but we might not have the budget for that. So why don't we go and get someone that can maybe do both? I mean, obviously it depends on the fee. I mean, Calafiori would be great. He's Arsenal bound, but we will talk about that later on more towards the end of the show as well. I think we'll get João Neves. I have a feeling Ineos really will want him. Well, apparently we're putting a bid for João Neves, but it's not come from reliable outlets. We know that Man United really like now João Neves, and we know that Man United are generally interested in João Neves, but I think they've deemed it unlikely because of the price, and I don't think they're willing to pay the price it takes. I know that apparently they would be willing to pay 60 million to bring João Neves in, but it would take probably at least 90 million. I don't think United have the funds this summer to drop 90 million in one position, and the reports coming out saying we've made a bid for João Neves aren't the most reliable. So I think we do generally like João Neves, but I think it would be more of a next season signing rather than a this season signing if we did end up going for João Neves. In regards to further outs, it was said by Graham Bailey that Manchester United are working hard on getting done deals for Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho by next week. Man United are really trying to get Jadon Sancho and Mason Greenwood out of the club and get that done by next week. I think, to be honest, Man United's plan is to get Sancho and Greenwood out of the club in the next week, double exit sorted. I think that's what they want to do. I think in regards to the other outs they have planned, as said, I think Lindelof will go, I think Casemiro will go, and I think they'll push to see if they can get any money on Maguire or McTominay and get a little bit of cash in for that as well. Alex B says Benfica will not sell Neves on the cheap. Dealing with big Portuguese clubs is often a nightmare. Absolutely. I think for me, I don't see João Neves going on the cheap. I think Benfica, look how much money they got for João Felix. And João Felix, they got like 100 million for. He wasn't good at Atletico. He wasn't good at Chelsea. He wasn't good at Barca. He missed a penalty yesterday. I mean, I wouldn't say he wasn't good. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't the kind. He's not the kind of player that fee would satisfy. So that, I don't know, satisfy the word. You know what I mean. Enzo Fernandez, they got over 100 million for. Darwin Núñez, they nearly got 100 million for. Goncalo Ramos, they could have got like 70 million for. I think the prices are just absolutely crazy as well. Transfer ends near 1st of September where United play Liverpool. So that game, United can get players in before playing them. Not sure how Liverpool will be like with Slot exactly. I think, considering we've got a few tough fixtures in September, it'd be really important to get those players through the door so they're ready for Liverpool. I think Slot, he's a similar sort of coach to Klopp in terms of a similar play style, obviously not the same. And Liverpool have gone with the head coach thing and Slot coming in because he could probably adjust to the players right. But Liverpool haven't done any transfer business yet. I assume Liverpool will sign 3 key players, but they've been very quiet on the transfer front. So it'll be interesting to see what Liverpool do. I know they had an interest in Anthony Gordon. I'm assuming Liverpool are going to probably go big on an attacker and probably sign a left-sided defender. I think Liverpool will sign a left centre-back and attacker, and I think Liverpool will just sort of get their deals done out of nowhere and swiftly, and I assume Liverpool will have those signings in place for the Man United game. So it is really important that we also can get those signings in place. United definitely need to sell to buy. We don't have the cash this season. It's crucial. Apparently, we could probably have a net spend of around 100 million and be totally fine, which can almost cover Zirkzee, De Ligt, Agate. I think the wages saved with Varane and Martial leaving will allow us to cover Zirkzee, De Ligt and Agate with what we have. But anyone we buy on top of them will depend on sales. Like, I want Desiree Doué, but that is going to depend on selling Mason Greenwood. I want a second centre-back, but that's going to depend on selling Lindelof and Maguire. I want Youssouf Fofana to come in on top of Agate, but that is going to depend on, McTominay or Casemiro or Eriksen. I think if we can sell 2 of Casemiro, McTominay and Eriksen, 1 of Lindelof and Maguire, and Sancho and Greenwood, we could then go out and sign my ideal 6 signings, which would be De Ligt, Zirkzee, Agate, Doué, Fofana, and a left centre-back, left-back hybrid. I'd love Pacho or Calafiori. I've gone with Hincapie. It's more realistic. Shora Hatto is also a good option as well. You can sell later to balance the books, but have to be very confident we will move those names on. Yeah. That's the problem. I feel like this is what happened with Elise, is Man United ideally probably would have wanted to put a bid in for Elise, but they don't have the confidence that they're going to sell Greenwood or Sancho, and then if they buy Elise and they can't offload Greenwood and Sancho, they basically overstacked in that position. It's not a good place for FFP. We have to be kind of careful with those elements, and that's annoying. It's almost like, can we just buy these players and sell after? But because we're not good at selling, and at the high wages and the difficulties we have in selling, it will be difficult. Rashford, I believe, will stay at United. There is rumours of Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes leaving Manchester United, but I believe both players will stay and be in a Man United shirt next season, in total honesty with you. So let's talk about Dan Ashworth and Dan Ashworth's ideal signing for Manchester United and Joshua Zirkzee, which seems to be really advancing. Now we've got Dan Ashworth in the door. Joshua Zirkzee is really advancing. So maybe there is some kind of coincidence in this. It was said, following Dan Ashworth's arrival, Manchester United can now concentrate on pushing through a deal for top target Zirkzee, who the club see as the perfect fit to provide Højlund with some support up front. Dan Ashworth has already approved the Zirkzee signing and is a big fan of the player, according to many outlets. Erik ten Hag has been on the phone in recent weeks with several players who could be opportunities for Manchester United. One of the players ten Hag has been in contact with is Joshua Zirkzee. So, Dan Ashworth likes Joshua Zirkzee. This could be Dan Ashworth's first signing. This is someone that Dan Ashworth has given the go-ahead on. Press for him. Joshua Zirkzee. Recruitment at United, like Joshua Zirkzee. Man United are really focusing on Joshua Zirkzee, constant contact with him from Erik ten Hag. Agent talks seem to be going well, but his agent is a bit of a knobhead. It's just basically been said, Man United are now the favourites to sign Zirkzee. It's believed that Zirkzee will agree to join United. Some sources saying personal terms have a verbal agreement, but I would say take that with a pinch of salt. Zirkzee will officially decide after the Euros, but most sources are saying his head is up with Man United. He will make his official, he won't put pen to paper till after the Euros, but it's been said his head is with Manchester United and he wants Manchester United. And if that is true, and that is now coming out from credible reports, then Zirkzee will be a Man United player unless his agent demands a significant fee. Man United are willing to pay what it takes to bring Zirkzee in. They're willing to pay his 34 million release clause. They've made it clear they're more than happy with bringing Zirkzee in. For 34 million, they will pay his release clause. Zirkzee now wants Manchester United. We're now pole position for Zirkzee. He's had conversations with ten Hag. Good. It just depends on the agent fees. Because if the agent wants 16 million in agent fees, it becomes a 50 million deal. Man United won't do that. They won't want to spend more than 40 million on a striker. So I assume Zirkzee to Man United happens. It will be interesting to see how it all advances. Give me one sec. I'm just putting the phone on mute as it keeps going ping, ping, it's ping. 100 million for Ligt, Zirkzee, Branthwaite and Agate. What great business. Well, Branthwaite, you could get 120 million for Ligt, Zirkzee and Agate, but Branthwaite, I don't think you can put in there. But I think, yeah, you can easily get Ligt, Zirkzee and Agate for under 120 million, which I think is very, very good. And then I think the money we raise in outs can be put on the second midfield signing, a potentially hybrid kind of player and more. Guys, I do apologise if there is a little bit of lag coming in. McTominay Maguire out first. Do you know what? McTominay Maguire can offer stuff next year and they can be good for squad depth, but I personally think that McTominay we can maybe get 35-40 million for in pure FFP profit. And I know McTominay had a good this season and he's good coming off the bench, but we know he's not good enough to start. And I think that 35 or 40 million for McTominay in pure FFP profit that we could get this summer could be invested into Yusuf Fofana. It can cover the fee of Agate. I think it gives us so much more freedom in the window, if I was going to be totally honest with you, to spend wise as well. CCL said we should go for Subamende. I'm surprised we haven't been linked for Subamende more. He's quite a good player, but maybe they're just not totally convinced on the player. And I think he wants to stay in Spain with some of the rumours as well. People talking about Scalvini, but he tore his ACL, so he's not going to be moving anywhere this summer as well. Can't progress keeping the lights of Scott Maguire, Wan-Bissaka. I agree with Alex. For me, I think we should get two of them out the door. I get we can't sell everyone at once, but I think if we can get two of Scott Maguire and Wan-Bissaka out the door and we can raise funds and we can replace them, I think that would be the ideal situation as well. I've not heard of Elise for a long time. Is he staying at Palace or leaving? He's got his medical scheduled in for Bayern Munich, but there's issues with the contract, the sell-on clause. Bayern Munich are a bit annoyed. So, I mean, there's potential. There's believed to be potential for Man United to be able to hijack the deal, but I don't really know. I don't think we're going to hijack the Elise deal, but the longer it drags on, the more confident I am that maybe something could happen. The contact between Erik ten Hag and Joshua Zirkzee in recent weeks has been constant and positive, is what's being reported as well. It's also been said that a fee around 12 million would be enough for Man United to convince Fiorentina to sell Amrabat. So potentially for midfield depth, Amrabat for 12 million doesn't sound like a bad deal at all. if we want some depth, so maybe we'll move for him later in the window as well. Man United made no attempts to sign Mats Wiefer, that is true. I'm surprised we didn't. I thought he, considering we were looking at Amadou Onana, and it's a very similar profile, I was quite surprised we didn't show much interest in Mats Wiefer. But let me get this story up on the screen before I get into the next news stuff. Guys, please do hit that like button if you have not already. And of course, subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. But it was said via Sport Witness that a fee of around 12 million would be enough for United to convince Fiorentina to sell Amrabat. Now, as I said, don't think Amrabat's done enough for us to buy him. But I think if we get to the end of the window, we're looking a little light in midfield with injuries. We know Amrabat can do a job next to Kobbie Mainoo. He wasn't played in his prime position until the end of the season, and he came injured and he was played out of position. But we now know Manchester City Cup final, he can do a job playing next to Kobbie Mainoo. And for £12 million as a second midfield signing, if we're a little bit tight on the budget, I'd go for him. My first choice, of course, Youssouf Fofana, but I think £12 million, I think that's something that United have definitely got to look at as well. Given Maguire's wages and what was originally planned, it's essential we get some sort of fee for him. I still think we can get 30 million for Harry Maguire, but he rejected other clubs because he didn't want to take a wage cut, and that's the frustrating thing. Whereas McTominay is on like less than half the wages Maguire's on, so it's just going to be so much easier to sell McTominay as well. Cash in on 40 million for McTominay and replace him with Amrabat. I think if we can cash, the thing is, if we get 40 million for McTominay, if we get 35 million for McTominay, we could then go and use that funds to bring in both Amrabat and Youssouf Fofana. Ugarte, Amrabat, Youssouf Fofana come into the midfield, all kind of similar profiles, I know. And then you've got Mount, Kobbie Mainoo, and Bruno can play more advanced. You've got those 6 midfielders in. I think it looks all right. I'd keep Amrabat, but only if we sell another CM first. Completely agree. For me, he's a second midfield signing. He didn't make enough difference for us to say we've got to bring him back. But for depth, for numbers, let's say Eriksen, McTominay, and Casemiro leave. I would then say Ugarte, Fofana, Amrabat. I would say maybe we want someone more attacking than Amrabat, but we know he can do a job. I'd say look at something like that as well. We'll see more of Mount on the right wing this season. We are going to talk about Mason Mount and his role as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll be shocked if we get more than 30 million from someone. Maybe because of the 1 year left on his contract, we get around 30 million for him. But I think everyone knows that we'll just offer him a new contract if we don't sell him this summer, and he'll agree to sign. So it's not like they're going to be able to get him on a free the following summer. I think things would be relatively easy with McTominay. I think McTominay is quite an easy player to negotiate with. He's not on ridiculously high wages, and I do think other clubs know that as well. I read that Ashworth was flying to Germany. I heard a rumour about that, but again, couldn't tell you. So, what is the latest on De Ligt? Man United are closing in on a 34 million deal for Matthijs de Ligt. Manchester United and moves for Bayern Munich's Matthijs de Ligt is progressing quickly. 34 million for de Ligt is a steal. It's going to believe to be around 40 million, including add-ons. De Ligt is understood to be willing to take a pay cut in order to secure his pathway to England. So, De Ligt taking a wage cut, 34 million deal, progressing. Matthijs de Ligt will not create any issues on salary negotiations despite being on a big salary at Bayern. Manchester United know that he's keen to join the club. There is no other club in negotiations with De Ligt because the player's only focus is Manchester United. He is only given the green light to Manchester United. His agent is negotiating with Manchester United. No issue on contract, says Romano. It was also said by Chris Wheeler that United have not given up on the hopes of signing Branthwaite after Matthijs de Ligt if the club can raise necessary funds for through player sales. It was also said the pursuit of De Ligt is independent of Branthwaite, and that Manchester United are optimistic about the transfer fee of Ugarte, and they believe the transfer fee could be pushed down to 50 million euros, which is 42 million pounds. Some sources saying Ugarte could be 35 million pounds. I think if you include add-ons in the De Ligt and Ugarte deal, they'll both be about 40 million each, which is 80 million. If you include add-ons in the Zirkzee deal as well, on top of the 34 million release clause, that's 40 million. I think you get De Ligt, Zirkzee, and Ugarte for 120 million, and then everything else we do will be just like dependent on sales, if I'm going to be honest. We definitely need some midfield muscle. I agree with Stephanie there as well. De Ligt also, if he comes in, hopefully stays injury free. I mean, that's the biggest worry with De Ligt. Now, he had a very injury prone season this year, but his other previous seasons he hasn't been as injury prone, missing only like 3-4 games. So I'm hoping this is a one-off season where he just had like a one-off bad injury season. But we said that about Mason Mount, and then Mason Mount spent the whole season on the sidelines. And it was like, we could have got Mason Mount for free right now, and we spent 55 million for him to start about 2 Premier League games and not be particularly convincing in those Premier League games either. Branthwaite and De Ligt would both sign and would be odd as both physical, not the quickest. I do agree. I think maybe I like Branthwaite, but I think now we've got Ligt, maybe a more hybrid-esque player that could also play left back, defend the wide channels. Like, to be honest, I would love Mickey van der Ven, like someone that could do what Mickey van der Ven does and has the potential to even fill in at left back if needed. Calafiore, to be honest, Calafiore would have been brilliant. Not that we're going to get him, not that we've got any chance of getting him, but I think Calafiore would have been perfect. I really do. And we'll talk about that in a second. When Mount was available, he didn't play much. He was a better he was a better transfer than Kai Havertz. I don't think we can say Mount's a better transfer than Kai Havertz because he played a key role for Arsenal last season. But I believe that Mount was a better player than Kai Havertz when we signed him from Chelsea. And I believe that Mount next season, if he stays fit and gets back into form, can be better than Havertz. But I wouldn't say he was a better signing than Havertz because Havertz had a much better season as well. So yeah, I wouldn't waste too much money on Branthwaite, and I guess there's skepticism around the sort of De Ligt's injury record as well. But yeah, it's annoying what happened with obviously Mounts. So Man United are making some external changes at the club. We will talk about some more transfer news in a second, but I just want to read out Laurie Whitwell's article about external changes going on at United. Man United is set to hire Hele, I'm just going to say that, Jelle Ten Ruwala, I don't know how to say his name. Man United is set to hire a new goalkeeping coach. We're going to say that. He spent the last 2 years at Burnley and accepted an offer to join Ajax 2 months ago, but United are now going to pay compensation to get the deal done. The goalkeeping coach is seen as suiting Erik ten Hag's ideology. It is hoped that ten Hag's revamped coaching team will be in place for the first day of pre-season, and Richard Hartis, who's been Man United's goalkeeping coach since 2019, is set to lead the club, which is good. What I like about the story and what I think is particularly relevant about the story is that Manchester United are offloading everywhere. Manchester United are really backing Ten Hag. And also really saying, you know what, we're going to bring in René Hake, we're going to bring in Ruud van Nistelrooy, but we're also going to bring in the goalkeeping coach Ten Hag wants. When Ten Hag came to United, he could bring McLaren and he could bring Van der Gaag, but he couldn't bring in the goalkeeping coach he wanted. He couldn't bring in the medical team he wanted. He couldn't bring in the strength and conditioning coach he wanted. Ineos is saying, you know what, Ten Hag's been working with half of Ole, half of Ragnick, and half of Mourinho's failed coaching team. Let's go and replace them all because these guys are here under Ole and Mourinho, and the Glazers didn't let Ten Hag change that. So Ineos is saying, you know, let's go change this, let's go change that. And I like that from Ineos, that they're really making the effort to change so many aspects of Manchester United going forward as well. Still baffled by the Mount deal, and giving him number 7 shirt is an insult to legends that preceded him. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a shirt number, so I wasn't that bothered about it, but I did feel that he wasn't a number 7 shirt signing. Like, for me, I would have kept the number 7 shirt off any player for another couple of years until we get back to the top. I think the reason Mount was given the number 7 shirt was because they wanted to sell more shirts when they brought him in. It was literally a report about it that the Glazers were hoping signing Mason Mount would sell shirts, and they were disappointed by the lack of shirts he sold when he joined United, considering he was given the number 7. I think it was a marketing idea from United. Let's give Mason Mount the number 7. We've kind of ruined the like iconicness of the number 7. Like, I'm not going to hate on Mount for taking the number 7, but I do think Man United giving him the number 7 was because they were trying to sell shirts and it was all commercial as well. 140 likes, guys. We're going to go for over 600 likes, so please do. So we've got over 600 people watching. I want to hit 300 likes, so please do hit the like button. If half of the people in the chat watching right now hit the like button, we will hit the 300 like target as well. Is Van der Gaag going to be demoted, or is he staying as number 2? I can't imagine Ruud just being a striker coach. McLaren's going to stay. Van der Gaag and Benny McCarthy are going to leave, and they're going to be placed by René Hake and Van Nistelrooy. So Van Nistelrooy, I believe, is replacing Van der Gaag. René Hake is probably replacing Benny McCarthy, other way around actually, but they'll both be Ten Hag's assistants. So Mitchell van der Gaag will leave Manchester United, and so will René Hake as well. The Glazers ruin everything about our club. Understatement of the century, but you're absolutely correct. I just hope that they're completely gone. I hope that Ineos completely buy them out as well. So yeah, Havertz was the biggest flop of the Euros. I mean, he wasn't great at the Euros, Havertz, but I wouldn't say he was a flop at Arsenal. I think, you know, considering the noise around how negative people were around that deal, we actually ended up having a semi-decent season at Arsenal. So let's talk about Mason Mount and Mason Mount's role. It was said that Mason Mount is expected to play a more prominent role after an injury hit first season. So I've always been questioning, what is Mason Mount's role? Because what I'm going to show you here is me trying to think of what Mason's Mount role could be at Man United next season. So I was sort of coming up with what my ideal Man United starting 11 would look like. And I was sort of thinking, well, Højlund would be, you know, front three is probably going to be Højlund, Garnacho, Rashford, and I would like Doué and Zirkzee to come in and push Rashford and Højlund, and then potentially like that. But I was looking at Mount. Mount would be 3rd choice on the right wing, probably 4th choice on the left wing. He'd be second choice behind Bruno, but if we did bring in Desiree Doué, he can do a job in the Bruno role, and Amad and Zirkzee can fill in the Bruno role. He'd probably be, if we brought in Fofana, third choice behind Maino and Fofana, which I think was what Mason Mount was brought in to do. Is we originally planned to have a midfield three of Bruno, Mount, Maino, and that was what Mount was brought in to do. But I look at Mount, and he's third choice in a centre mid role. He's second choice in a 10 role. He's probably fourth choice in a left wing role and third choice in a right wing role, assuming we bring in those signings. We probably won't bring in those signings on the screen, but apparently he's going to have a more prominent role at United, which for me, I would assume would maybe be playing next to Bruno, with Kobbie dropping deeper and rotating with Ugarte. But it's also been said and reported multiple times that the reason Man United want to bring in Ugarte is because they believe Kobbie Mainoo's best position is further forward, and Ugarte will unlock that. So then it's Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno playing further forward with Ugarte at the back, which would then push Mount onto the wing, which he can do. But the big question is Mason Mount an actual winger or not? I think that's a big question. A number of the England star contenders for biggest flops at the Euros, not many performing. Most, yeah. Like Phil Foden, he's had one decent this game. Phil Foden's probably been, considering, player of the season and all of that, probably one of the worst. I mean, England haven't been convincing all round. Kane's not been brilliant, but at least he's got 2 goals. He's been living in the graveyard shift. Yeah, England at the Euros have been... I mean, I want to see Trent at right back, but he's going to go back to 3 at the back, play Walker as a third centre back, and now he's playing Trippier over Trent at right back. I like Southgate. You have to actually question this. Let me show you England's lineup for the match tonight. Let me show you what England's reported lineup is, if I can find it. So this is apparently the lineup for England tonight. No, that's the wrong screen. Let me get the right screen up. This is reportedly England's lineup tonight. So I don't mind the lineup. He's doing something different. Do I like 3 at the back? No. Would I have rather just seen, Anthony Gordon come in for Phil Foden and Trent come in for Walker, and then we would have gone with what was just working? Yeah. But he's changed the formation, which is fine. Now, Maino on Rice in a back 5 will be interesting. I do actually think Wharton would have been more suited to this role than Maino, but I think Maino has been so good you cannot drop him. I think he was the only player last Euros game that could come off the pitch with head held high, him and Ivan Toney. I really do. So they're playing Bellingham and Foden in central areas. So I'm guessing the formation is to get the best out of Bellingham and Foden, because we only get the best of Bellingham when he plays central, and Foden is just crap for England. But he's got Trippier at right back over Trent. I just think swap Trippier and Trent, and I'm okay with that lineup. But it's weird. He just doesn't use Trent. He's just a bit clueless. It's all a bit interesting there as well. But yeah, England haven't been convinced. I'm not going to do watch-alongs. I'm not really doing much Euro coverage because, for me, because I've got a second channel where I cover obviously the Premier League clubs as well. Because throughout the season I cover the Premier League, Man United, two pieces of content a day, sometimes three and 4. Sometimes when the Euros on, I'm also covering the transfer window for multiple clubs, not just United, other clubs on my second channel. And sometimes when the Euros on, I just like to take a bit of a break, and then I just do like TikToks and talk about it rather than like Euro content, because I feel like there's just so much on, and I like to enjoy my summer a little bit. But I maybe if England made the Euros final, I'd do a watch along. But I'm not, totally. I'm not a big international football person, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. Which brings me on to the final section of my show, which is just some suggestions here. But I was looking at Man United, and I was looking at our team and what we need to do. And I was saying, well, look, De Ligt, Zirkzee, Ugarte, they look like they could be potential nailed-on signings for United. It looks like, okay, United want to sign these players. It's probably going to happen. These guys, cool, United want to bring them in. Fine. Now, I still think we need another centre-back for depth because of injuries. We need another midfielder, and we need someone else that can give competition on the wings, because Amad, Rashford and Garnacho are the only convincing wingers at the club of the future. And Amad is young and raw, Garnacho is young and raw, Rashford has been hit and miss. I mean, Doué is young and raw, and maybe someone Elise more proven would have been the ideal scenario, although when we brought in Sancho, he was proven, he was crap. Anthony was decent, but he was crap when we brought him in, and obviously Ineos won't bring Greenwood back. So I was thinking my suggestions were De Ligt, Ugarte, Zirkzee, Hincapie, Fofana. If you could hijack Elise, do it. If Pedro Neto could stay fit, do it, but he won't, so I would go with Desiree Doué. And I think for me, that is the approach that United should say. And I went for Hincapie because I don't think we can get Pacho. I think Hato's a bit young and raw. I'm not convinced about Ignacio. Yeah, I like him, but I think he wouldn't be able to play with Martinez if needed. We can't get Calafiore because he's Arsenal bound. And I've always said this, if I was United, I'd target a top right centre-back and a versatile left centre-back that can play left-back to cover those two positions. Now, Hato and Calafiore would have been my first two choices. We're not going to get Calafiore. I think Hato, maybe it's just a bit too early, he's a bit too young, and maybe he needs another season at Ajax. But I think someone that can cover Martinez and cover Shaw would be brilliant because they're two injury-prone players. And obviously my options were Inacio, Hato, Calafiore, Hincapie. I think now De Ligt is coming in and he's physical. I think Inacio coming in is absolutely fine. But Inacio was always the second centre-back signing for me, not first, because of the lack of physicality and he couldn't partner Martinez. Hincapie is the guy that you can't really see his face. And that was what brought me to this. And that's what I thought, Man United squad looking like this next season, you can see depth there. You can see like decentish players in each position. I've gone with Maguire over Lindelof because I think he is the better player. But that's sort of what I would ideally like United squad to look like next season as well. We have to agree a few of these deals pending medicals can't leave it unsorted for weeks. I agree. Can we just get De Ligt done and then he can just have his medical as soon as the Euros is over? Because then that way, obviously he won't go on pre-season because he'll have a rest because he's gone far in the Euros. But at least De Ligt can be sorted for the second end of pre-season. I want De Ligt, Ugarte, Zirkzee. I understand Zirkzee saying I'm not making a decision to after the Euros, but I'd like De Ligt, Ugarte, Zirkzee to sort of those decisions to be sort of wrapped up and all of that as well. We should go for Shaw or Hato as left back. I think he is a really good player. Arsenal were looking at him, but they went for Calafiore instead. Doué's another player that can come. Doué has been very heavily linked to Tottenham Hotspur as well. Bring back Sancho. I think it's more of a personality thing. He won't apologise to the manager. Sancho and Ten Hag have a big meeting on Monday, so we'll have to see what happens with that. And if Sancho comes back to training, if he apologises, but he's from the streets and apparently you don't apologise. How do you think Onana did and what can he improve on? I think Onana, for the most part, actually was a lot better than people think. I think in the Champions League, Onana was horrific. In the Premier League, he had a good season. I think he got better towards the end of the season. He was really crucial in some big games. Yes, he has the odd mistake in him, but when you actually think about it, no goalkeeper had to save more shots than Onana last season because Man United conceded the most shots, or the second most shots, across Europe's top 5 leagues, which meant Onana had way more to do than any other keeper, which means he's more likely to make a mistake because he had way much more to do than any other keeper. So when I look at Onana and the fact that actually the defence conceded the second most amount of shots of any team in Europe's top 5 leagues, he had the most to do, and as a shot stopper, we didn't concede anywhere near the amount of goals as other teams. I think he's done a good job. If the Champions League was a disgrace, he's the reason we got knocked out. But the Premier League, general football, I actually think, Onana had a better season than people think. I was just disappointed that we brought Onana and build up to play out from the back and we kept going long. Maybe that's because of injuries of Martinez and Varane and we couldn't play the style of football we wanted out the back, because you saw in pre-season Onana acting as the third centre-back and build up and playing out from the back. We didn't see that this season. We only saw it in pre-season. We saw a different style in pre-season and injuries definitely impacted that. But look, I don't think Onana is a bad keeper. I think if he had a bad season this season, I would have concerns and I would look at potentially maybe thinking, okay, this second season wasn't convincing. First season, he was okay. It was a warm-up season. But I generally believe Onana is going to have a good season. I think he's a good keeper. I think he can do the job. I think he's the least of our worries. If we start getting back into like second place and looking really close to City and Arsenal and where they're at, and we're not convinced on Onana, maybe we move forward and replace him. But for the most part, I'm happy with Andre Onana. I don't think he's as awful as people made out. Calafiore literally would have been perfect. It's such a shame. Alice, if we only get De Ligt, Zirkzee and Ugarte, is that enough? No, it's not enough. It would be a highlight of failure in sales. I think those three are core signings, but we have to get, for me, we have to get at least 5 signings. De Ligt, Zirkzee and Ugarte, and we have to get at least 5 signings. Another centre-back that can cover left-back, and another midfielder. We can maybe miss out on the winger because we probably won't be able to sell Anthony, and then there's a possibility of Pellistri staying, and then maybe in January we can look to get a winger to push us up. But we have to get at least 5 signings for me. Maybe if McTominay and Casemiro and Eriksen stay, we only get one midfielder, which I don't like, but fair enough. But for me, on top of that, at least a second centre-back signing. Just because of the injuriness that we had at the back and how important that is as well. Worry with me is Onana is just not the best shot stopper, even with the basics. Yeah, we're not using him to his strengths, which is the very worrying thing. But the shot stopping was a bit better than I think people expected as well. Alice, what's she saying? Bat 5? No, I don't think United would ever do a bat 5. Ten Hag's a very bat 4, guys. We're on 202 likes. The goal was 300 likes. We've got 600 people watching. If just half of you have hit that like button, we will hit our target. So please do as well. Onana does need some fine-tuning for some basic saves he should be making, but we've seen him make mistakes. Yeah, Onana is mistake-prone. Onana has a mistake in him, but I actually think there's a good player there. And you know what? I kind of feel the same about Amrabat in a weird way. Comparing Onana and Amrabat is really weird because they're different positions, but I always thought Amrabat was a good player and we didn't quite use him properly, but I always know with Amrabat there's a silly mistake in him. Like, he played in the cup final versus Man City and he was brilliant, but he is the kind of guy that can give the ball away and have a silly mistake in him. But I actually think that Amrabat, for the most part, was a decent player, and if he is going to be available for 12 million, then yeah. I was thinking, do you know what? Oh, interesting story coming out here from Emmy Martinez's agent. Emmy Martinez's agent has said this. Last year, he was very close to Man United. The coach chose Andre Onana because he already knew him, but everyone at United later maintained the ideal goalkeeper to sign was Emmy Martinez. Now, I'm glad we signed Onana over Emmy Martinez just for age, and I think Emmy Martinez is not the best ball-playing keeper. But apparently, Emmy Martinez was someone that Man United were looking at signing in goal, speaking of Onana as well. West Ham have signed Kielman for £40 million, so getting De Ligt for £30 million is looking like a good bit of business as well. Girona looking to sign a really good Ajax talent called Gabriel Mishoy, who obviously will probably be linked with Manchester City. So that's a big move for them as well. Yep, Chelsea have signed another youngster, but he is quite a good youngster, the guy they signed from FC Basel as well. But listen, people, I'm going to wrap up today's live show in just a second. We must sell Maguire, McTominay, Eriksen, Victor to get 5 signings that we need. Long term, I'm not sure about Onana. He can't get down fast enough if he can change that as if he has a future. Understandable, I agree with that. I think, yeah, Maguire, McTominay, Eriksen, Victor, and probably Casemiro to allow us to get the 6 signings we need, ideally, because I think left centre-back hybrid, DM, centre-mid, right centre-back, right winger, striker is what we need ideally as well. Amrabat just needed a run of matches as an anchor DM, exactly. I think once Amrabat started to get a run of matches, you could see Amrabat improve, and he just looked so much better as well. Sancho sell for 30 million. I'd sell Sancho for 30 million, but no one is coming in with bids for Jadon Sancho. No one's expressing an interest in Sancho. We're worried about sell to buy, yet Chelsea can spend hundreds of millions. Yeah, Chelsea's net spend is double ours in the last 2 years. Their net spend is over 700 million in the last 2 years. Ours is 300 million. But Chelsea are selling hotels and giving out 8-year contracts and finding loopholes. But hopefully they no longer find loopholes and they actually get done as well, because it's so frustrating that Chelsea keep finding ways around things as well. But big up everybody for watching today's show. I'm going to wrap up the show here. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.